I want to return to the subject of the Joker sequel, because what I'm hearing right now is a lot of negativity, and it's not that I'm saying don't be negative. I'm not like a the Joker staff has not paid me to make this video. I'm not on their payroll, although I would happily be, but just because a little dough wouldn't be bad, but I'm not on their payroll. This is an independent assertion on my part, and I just want to say make a couple of observations about the kind of things that are being said right now with respect to the Joker sequel, which I will not try to the subtitle I will not try to pronounce until I know for sure how to pronounce it, because otherwise I know I'll get people making fun of me for mispronouncing it. So what I'm hearing is there are a lot of negative critical assessments of this movie. Well, okay. Do you remember the first movie? Do you remember Joker? I think it wound up having more positive than negative reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, but not by a whole lot. I think it was something like 58% fresh. This is just me remembering. Of course, this was 4 years ago, 5 years ago. Wow, 5 years ago. So I might be wrong about that figure, but the critics did not overwhelmingly like Joker at all. In fact, many of them hated it. Went into watching it with bad attitudes because they thought this is an incel film. They thought this is glorifying an incel. A straight white male character who's lonely, and it's going to make all these incels get activated and start shooting people. And you remember the hype. You remember the hysteria over the original Joker movie. I mean, I hope you do, because I do. So the overall critical response to the first movie was not not overwhelmingly positive. I think overall, as more and more critics saw it, that they had to, probably some of them had to grudgingly admit, yeah, this is pretty good. This is a pretty good movie, but a lot of them refused to even grudgingly admit that was the case. And I've heard so many, I could go on for ages about this, of course, because I was a big fan of the first movie, the original Joker movie. But I heard so many bogus takes on Joker, saying that it was derivative because it was just copying Taxi Driver and King of Comedy, which is, it's do people not understand there's such a thing as homage, or homage, if you want to say it less pretentiously? Do people not understand that you can refer to certain earlier works, but still have your own work take things in its own direction? Do people honestly not get that? This is going to be this is a literary reference that I don't know, might not resonate with everybody, because you might not know what I'm talking about. But when T.S. Eliot wrote his classic poem *The Wasteland*, published in 1922, that poem makes reference to a ton of prior poems and plays and stories. It makes reference to Chaucer, it makes reference to Shakespeare, makes reference to Alexander Pope. But I think anybody who read *The Wasteland* and came away saying, "Oh, this guy is just a hack because he's just copying these other writers," um, is a dunce, or just being willfully hostile, willfully ignorant. I would say, because an homage is not, to copy something is one thing. To make it to refer back to something, but still make it something new. That's been done a whole hell of a lot in art, of all kinds. So I really think that a lot of, maybe some of these people were just wanting to be contrarian. I mean, I'm not saying that you had to love Joker, the original Joker. I loved it maybe a little too much. For me, I loved it to maybe the I loved it the same way that John Hinckley loved Taxi Driver, reportedly, if that story's not apocryphal. But the allegedly John Hinckley watched Taxi Driver something like 50 times, and it's what gave him his idea to try to shoot Reagan, because he associated Reagan with the politician, the Palantine, the guy who was running for president in Taxi Driver, who Travis originally tries to kill. He supposedly associated Palantine with Reagan, and thought that he was trying to carry out what Travis failed to carry out in the movie. I don't know whether that's even believable. I know there's lots of hinky things about the Hinckley story. Not least of which being that he was part of a family who were good friends with the Bushes, fellow oil people, and I think his brother was scheduled to dine with his brother, and his brother's wife were scheduled to dine with the Bushes on the very evening when the shooting happened. So the families were close. I think there's plenty of evidence of MK Ultra-ish stuff happening around Hinckley, but I don't want to dwell too much on that. I've already gotten a little bit sidetracked here. My point is that I think the original Joker got attacked for all kinds of poor reasons. First of all, it got attacked because people willfully misunderstood it, or they just decided ahead of time that it was going to be a terrible movie because they didn't like the kind of things that Todd Phillips was saying going into the movie. Todd Phillips had originally made comedies, and he said, "I can't make comedies anymore because people are always on Twitter getting offended." So, and so the people who were who were like that, the kind of people who would get on Twitter and get offended and try to cancel people, they got mad at Phillips for saying that. And of course, that included a lot of people who were a lot of critics, I would say. So I wouldn't say that critics disliking the sequel ahead of time is a sign that the movie is going to be bad. I would caution against trusting the critics, because look at the original movie. Look at the kind of critical reception it got. It did not. It by no means was fawned over by critics. Not at all. Audiences loved it, obviously, because it broke all kinds of records, and it was just this cinematic sensation. It did way better than anything than anyone ever predicted it would do. And it was the first R-rated movie ever to make $1 billion, I believe. Recently, Deadpool and Wolverine accomplish that feat. But before that, it was the first. Didn't get a release in China, like a lot of American movies, big budget American movies do. So it had no access to the China market. Still made over $1 billion after having been made for what is by Hollywood standards, pretty cheap. And it looked great, in spite of not having the most fantastic budget in the world. The money went in all the right places because it doesn't look like a cheaply made film at all. Anyway, here's why I am optimistic about the Joker sequel being good. I'm optimistic about it because we see the return of Todd Phillips and of the writer, what's his name, Silver, I can't remember his first name, and of Joaquin Phoenix. So we've got this triumvirate who are all returning to this story. Now these guys don't seem like the kind of people who would just want to come back and cash in. You could say that Todd Phillips did that with the Hangover sequels. Yeah, that was a different Todd Phillips. That was the Todd Phillips of the aughts and the early teens. But I think the Joker era Todd Phillips does not take that approach to this project. And I think especially the fact that Joaquin Phoenix is coming back. Whatever you think about Joaquin Phoenix, and I think he's probably a big pain in the ass. I'm not a Joaquin Phoenix defender or anything, but I think one thing that you would have to say about him is that he's not into the cheap money grab. Right? He would not want to return unless he felt like they had something good. Like this was a story that didn't need a sequel, and I still believe that it was perfectly self-enclosed. It could have just ended there, and that would have been that. And I think that was the initial plans. There was no talk about a sequel until the studio said, "Hey, this movie really did pretty damn well," and so I think they applied some pressure on the makers of the first movie to come out with a sequel. But I think they had a lot of leverage. So Phillips, Silver, Phoenix, those three guys, they had a lot of leverage. They didn't have to just make any crap movie that just to cash in. They had the ability to insist, well, if we're going to make a sequel, it's going to be on our terms. And that's why the premise for the sequel sounds so bizarre, right? It's a musical, right? There are songs and characters singing songs to one another in it, apparently. And so that in itself, makes a lot of people sort of scratch their heads and say, what is going on here? What are they trying to do with that? Now, I think that some people probably react negatively to Lady Gaga being in this second movie. They think of that as a sellout or something, or they don't like Lady Gaga because of her her politics or whatever. And as I've said in the prior video, I have heard people say things like, "Oh, this is going to be another woke kind of movies where it's supposed to be about Arthur Fleck / Joker, but really it's just going to all going to be about the broad, just like they did with the Mad Max movies with Mad Max Fury Road, and like they've done with other things. It's going to be this bait and switch." And it's going to be called Joker, Joker 2, or Joker plus the subtitle, but it's really going to be all about Harley Quinn. And that's apparently not the case. Critic after critic has said Lady Gaga is great in this, but she's underutilized. We don't see enough of her. We see much more of Joaquin Phoenix. So I think that whoever started that rumor is clearly wrong. And again, it's one of those things. It's one of those rage bait things that's so easy to get people to be angry about stuff because there's been so much dicking around with people's beloved IPs. That's not a term I would have used until recently, but intellectual properties. All these movies that people loved that have been dicked with, and made woke. And where they make the male character, they de-emphasize the male character, or they make him look stupid next to some new female hero, like they did with Indiana Jones, and in that disastrous latest Indiana Jones movie, or something else, or all the crap that the Disney, all the ways in which Disney's ruined Star Wars. There's plenty of reasons to fall for rage bait, but I think that was rage bait, because that's not the case with this movie, based on what critic after critic after critic has said, about the story, and they wouldn't lie. They wouldn't have a reason to lie about that. So, I haven't seen the movie myself yet, so I don't know for sure, but it would seem that way. It would seem that that whole idea is wrong, and I've heard people say, "Oh, this is just going to be a movie that says the original Joker is meaningless and you're stupid for caring about him." But that doesn't seem to be that's not borne out from what the critics are saying. The critics are saying things like it doesn't whatever critical points they're making. It's not. They're not saying things like. The critics would like it. They would like it if it was. Oh, good. It's being so. So Todd Phillips is being socially responsible now, and he's saying, the Joker that you liked in the original movie, he's somebody you shouldn't like, and you shouldn't cheer for him. You shouldn't want to see good things happen for him, because he's just a terrible, incel creep. That doesn't seem to be the case either. People aren't saying that about this movie. So, and if the movie were going that way, if it had taken that route, then the critics would be liking it. It would be getting overwhelmingly positive reviews, and that would be a bad sign. The fact that they're not liking it, and in fact, I've heard one critic say that it doubles down on all the things that he found that he was uncomfortable with about the original movie. I was thinking, right on. That's a good sign. That's a sign that this movie is on the right track, to quote Lady Gaga. So, but anyway, I think I'd begun to talk about Lady Gaga. I think Lady Gaga is a good performer, a compelling performer, and a good actress, and I think she has shown that even though from time to time she's said things that were woke, and from time to time, of course, she's flashed Illuminati symbols and done this or done that makes people think that she's part of this corrupt musical industry, and that may or may not be true. I don't know. I've always sort of liked her as a performer. I've always thought she was talented. I always thought that her persona was sort of compelling. I've always enjoyed her music, and I've liked watching her in movies. I thought in the movie, what was it? the one she was in with Adam Driver a couple years ago, House of Gucci. I thought she was really good in that, and I thought, I thought it definitely was not a performance where she was trying to take this character who was villainous, who had done some bad things, or who had plotted to do some really bad things. The movie didn't try to make her look like, didn't do the woke thing and try to say, oh, she's just a put upon woman. She's just misunderstood. So, and she's Lady Gaga has worked with people who are very non woke. So I don't think the idea that Lady Gaga being in this movie is going to make it woke. I don't think that's a thing to worry about, and I haven't heard them saying anything like that. So all this is to say, I think this movie will be good. I still am confident that it will be good. Now, will it be as good as the original? Probably not. My guess is that it probably won't be as good as Joker, the first Joker. But I'm confident that it will be good, and I even have a lot of faith that it will be very good. I don't know how to predict how it will do at the box office. There's people talking now about how the box office projections for the Joker sequel aren't looking great. I don't know why. It's like people want this movie to fail, or they're gleeful over the notion of this movie failing. And these include people who are against the all the woke shit. They seem to have turned on Joker for some reason, or some of them have. They seem to be talking about, they seem to be finding reasons to say, oh, well, this movie is not going to be any good. This movie's going to be bad in this way, or it's going to be bad in that way. It's going to be disappointing in this way or that way, and it's going to tank. So I don't know. I think predicting what kind of bank this movie will make, it's probably, I would guess that it won't do nearly as well as the original Joker, because I think already some people aren't so sure about this whole musical notion. This Joker as a musical, they're like, what? I don't get that. Even though I think there's some precedent for it. I mean, we in the original, Joker was said to, Todd Phillips said that Joker was somebody who had music in his soul. And there was the famous, dancing on the Joker steps. And I was very fortunate to walk those same Joker steps when I was in New York a couple years ago. You go back and watch that video of me ascending the Joker steps. So I think the original already had this, and he makes reference to the song Carnival, and there's lots of other, music. There are lots of musical cues. There's the Put on a Happy Face thing, which they don't sing, but it is a song. So I don't know if people will take to it, but it seems like the triumvirate who made this movie, who are the same three guys who made the first movie, who had creative control over the first movie. I trust that they have something interesting to say. I trust that they will take the story in an interesting direction, because their instinct was so on with the first movie. And the first movie was so uncompromising in being what it was, in spite of the fact that, there were all these naysayers, and like the who was it? Some branch of the military gave some warning that, the incels are going to be activated by this one. You better be careful. You better have some good security for this movie, because these dangerous incels, they're going to go out and wreak all kinds of havoc, and didn't happen, much to their disappointment. So yeah, despite all of that, they stuck to their guns. They made the movie that they made. It's not easy to make a movie that that refuses to bow down to what the powers that be want it to be, and they didn't. They made the movie that they wanted to make. And I think the Joker sequel will also, will show that same. I'm confident that the Joker sequel will follow in the footsteps of the original. I think it will be likely uncompromising. It'll be fiercely whatever it is, and I think whatever it is will be good. So those are my thoughts about the Joker sequel. Let me know if you agree or disagree below, and tell me why or why not.